Hi, I'm Benjamin Mac Jackson, founder of the World War II Veterans History Project. I started this project in the summer of 2015 with the goal of providing knowledge and inspiration to my generation so they can better appreciate and understand what these heroes went through. My mission is to preserve the memories of the greatest generation. In this story, World War II veteran Staff Sergeant Frank J. Klum, who served in the Army Air Corps during the war, shares his experiences while engaged in fierce combat in North Africa, the Mediterranean, and Italy. He talks about his time fighting in the famous Kasserine Pass Battle, which was the turning point of the North African theater. Hear about his close calls with German Messerschmitt fighters, as well as the conditions during the invasion of Sicily. Here's his story.
My name is Frank J. Klum, it's K-L-U-M, and my rank when at the end of World War II, when I got out of the service, was a staff sergeant. I enlisted, but it was a fraudulent enlistment because a week before the Japs bombed Pearl Harbor, I went to the recruiting station and took all my exams and everything else, and I was just 18 then. I was just out of high school since June. And when I went down and I took my exams and everything else, I passed everything, and they told me to take these papers and have them signed by my parents, because at that time you had to be 21 in order to have a legal signature. So I went on home, I took the papers, and they told me that I could have it, my mom's signature and dad could be verified by the postmaster. So I took all the papers home. When I got home, and I asked my mom and dad to write their names for me, and I practiced for about 3 or 4 days. When I thought I had it just about right, then I signed their names to the application. I went to see the postmaster, and I told him, I says, Leonard, I says, Mom and Dad have signed my enlistment papers here. I says, but we got to have your signature to verify their signature. So he looked at it, and he just signed his name. And then when I took my exams, that was a Thursday before the Japs bombed Pearl Harbor, and the guy asked me, he said, when you want to leave, today, tomorrow, Monday, or Tuesday? I says, well, whoa, I says, make it Tuesday. So Monday I had to turn my paperwork in, and when I did, this was in the McKeesport Daily News, showing us, of course they said that recruiting office reports rush here. This is just a picture. There was an article about it in there too, saying that local youth seeks chance to fight Japs. So Tuesday, I went to Pittsburgh. I sworn in, and then from Pittsburgh, I went to Cumberland, Maryland, to the reception station where I got all my gear and everything else, all my uniforms and everything. And then from there, I went to Jefferson Barracks, Missouri, which is right outside of St. Louis, and that's where I had my recruit training. After my recruit training, I was assigned to the 47 Bomb Group in Fresno, California. So we left St. Louis and went to Fresno, California. We weren't there very long because we were originally slated to go to the South Pacific. We were supposed to bring our outfit up to strength and everything else. Then we were supposed to take off for the South Pacific. But while we were there, they changed our orders. So instead of going to the South Pacific, well, we were assigned to Will Rogers Field in Oklahoma City. Now, when we left Fresno, California, we left by a troop train, and all our equipment was in the box cars, and all the flat cars, and all the personnel were in Pullman cars. Well, on the way to Oklahoma City, we just got across the border of Texas into Sayre, Oklahoma, when all of a sudden we derailed. We had a train wreck, and they come to find out later there was sabotage there because one of the rails had been messed with, and the rail come loose, and the whole thing went up in a big heap. And then, of course, my being one of the later people in the organization, of course, they chose me to pull guard on the equipment. So we spent about 3 days and 3 nights there guarding the equipment. And when they got everything all cleared up, then we went to Oklahoma City. We stayed in Oklahoma City until we went on maneuvers in North Carolina, excuse me, because we had our headquarters in Greensboro, North Carolina. From there, we were sent up to Fort Dix, New Jersey. We were at Fort Dix from the latter part of August until the 5th of September 1942, when we boarded the HMS Queen Mary and went overseas on the Queen Mary. There's the Queen Mary that I went. It took us 5.5 days to go from New York to Glasgow, Scotland, and we had to change our course every 7 minutes to keep the German subs from zeroing in on us. The people that I was with in our organization, we were the advanced cadre, and I guess at the time they thought that we were going to stay in England. But when they invaded Africa, well, I went from Bury St. Edmunds to Southampton, England, and I got there, I'd say maybe about the 10th of November in 42, because that was 2 days after they had invaded Africa. We got out there and we tried every morning for about 5 days to get off the ground, but we were fogged in every day and we couldn't go anywhere. Finally, on November the 15th, I got in a C-47 with cabin tanks, and they flew me and a bunch of and the rest of us there in our organization. They flew us from Southampton all the way to Casablanca, Morocco. And at Casablanca is when our other parts of our organization that had come from the States, well, that's where we finally got back together again. I was just in Casablanca just a few days, and then we were sent to a town outside of Casablanca for just a few days, and from there they flew me to Euxlabane, Algeria. That was the base where one of our squadrons was being based. Well, that was I think that was Christmas Eve we got there. The next day was Christmas Day, and that's when I experienced my first bombing raid. The Germans came over there and bombed the field. So the next day after that, they shipped me and other people from my squadron all the way up to Talep, Talep, Tunisia, which was the furthest advanced airfield in North Africa, and that was right in the Kasserine Pass area. Well, when we got there, it was nothing but an open field, and there was a fighter outfit. It was a P-40 fighter outfit that had been there. And when our squadron got there and when we started flying missions, well, this fighter squadron that used to provide air cover for our bombers. And I used to have to go over there and pick up the commander of the P-40 outfit and bring him over to our outfit so that he would brief them. And of course, while we were there, we had to live in foxholes because the Germans had air superiority, and we were getting bombed and strafed quite regularly. In fact, every night they would send a Ju-88, the Junkers 80U aircraft, over our field at night. They carried 4 bombs, 2 under each wing. So when they got over the field, they'd drop 1 bomb, fly around for a while, then drop the other one. Then time they dropped all 4 of them, well, that's when we could breathe a sigh of relief. They were trying to get the gun crews to fire at them so they could get our position, but they didn't do that. But while we were there, we had no bathing facilities whatsoever, and we were rationed 1 canteen cup of water a day. And that's what I used to drink. I didn't shave. I couldn't take a bath. So we were there until Rommel made his push through the Kasserine Pass, and our airfield was on the way. It was in his way, so we had to evacuate. But before we evacuated, well, we had to destroy any aircraft that we couldn't get off the ground. One incident when we were there in Talep, as I was saying, we used to get raided quite frequently. One day I was out there and we got strafed by German fighters, and I was in the Jeep, and I couldn't find a foxhole to get into, so I saw a big box just about maybe 30, 40 feet from where I was. So I got on the north side of this box because they were strafing from the south side, and because I thought I was in a safe area. I no sooner got on the ground behind that box, and all of a sudden the dirt in front of me started kicking up. It was about 20 feet up in front of where I was lying there. And I turned around, and there was an Me-109 that was firing his guns because there was a plane. One of our planes was right maybe about 100 yards in front of where I was. And of course, he shot up that airplane and took off. When the pilot came by, he was no more than about 20 feet off the ground. I could see the pilot just as plain as day. I can still see his face right now. When we got pushed out of the airfield by Rommel, and we went to Cannes-Robert, Algeria. When we got there, there was sort of a spa that was there. So when I went to take a bath, I went to pull off my shirt. My shirt come off at the sleeves because it had rotted because I hadn't bathed in over six or 7 weeks. And boy, it was good to get a bath, I'll tell you. But I wasn't at Cannes-Robert very long when I was reassigned to a new organization that was a combined English and American outfit. It was called North African Tactical Bomber Force. And when I was assigned there, I was assigned with one of our officers, and we were there with them doing forward bomber control work until the campaign in Africa was over, when we got all the way up to the Cape Bon Peninsula. Well, after they kicked the Germans out of there, and the Germans got out of there, well, from there I got on an LST and went from Cape Bon Peninsula to Gela, Sicily. And I went all through the Sicilian campaign. In fact, it was on one occasion when I got up in the morning, and when I had to get ready to go, when I saw General Patton climbing up into his tank. He had these old pearl-handled guns and everything else. And of course, he was one of the major generals that were going through Sicily. Well, we followed Patton and also General Montgomery, because we did bombing for both, for the 8th Army and also for our forces too. So after the Sicilian campaign was over, I was in Palermo, and then the first part of September in '43, they flew me from Palermo all the way to Oran, Algeria, where I got on board the USS Ancon, which was the command ship to be used for the invasion of Italy. So we left there, I think it was around the 5th of September in '43, and we hit the beach there in the invasion started on the 9th. The Germans had sent this one airplane with this one glider bomb on it, and it was meant to hit the command ship that I was on, but instead of hitting the command ship, it hit the USS heavy cruiser Savannah, and the bomb went down 4 decks. In the last deck, they had ammunition down there, so that exploded and blew a hole in the hull of the Savannah. And that one bomb killed 197 sailors on that ship. Of course, the Savannah went from Salerno, Italy. It went to Malta, and from Malta they did some repairs. Then it went to the Navy Yards in Philadelphia, and that was the last. It never did any more combat because it had quite a combat record before it got hit that one time. But that one bomb put it out of commission. Well, while we were at that beachhead, that was the 4th day. I got off the ship, and we got into a truck, and we started heading down to where he was supposed to take us. Well, I'm sitting in the back of the truck. I don't know if I was sitting or standing. I think I was standing, and I looked at the side, and we were passing up the infantry, and I'm thinking to myself, something's wrong here, isn't it? We shouldn't be going in this direction. But then in front of us, about maybe 75 yards, was a tank. And that tank kept rumbling down along, and we followed it at that distance. And there was a building on the left side of the road there. And as soon as that tank got past that building, it was hit by the German artillery shell, and just knocked it out. Of course, then we did a quick 180 degrees because the driver knew we were going in the wrong direction. We finally got to the place where we were supposed to be, and we were there for about 2 or 3 hours. Then we had to move. That was the first move. Then we were there for a little while longer. Then we had to move the second time. And then the third time we moved, well, we were almost back on the beach because you could see the ocean. And that was the night that General Clark was thinking about evacuating all the forces there on that beachhead. But there was one general, I forget what outfit was in, but anyway, he told General Clark, he says, if you leave, he says, just leave all your ammunition and food here. He says, we're staying. So that night, where I was sleeping, the tanks were all around us, and my commanding officer had to go down to Army Intelligence for a briefing. And when he come back from the briefing, he come up to me and he handed me 2 phosphorus bombs. He says, when I give you the word, he says, you put one of these on the head of the command card, and the other one, you get all of our secret files, because we had to, when we set up these missions, we had to set them all up and put them in code and send them to our organization, and then they would act on our instructions. So I asked my boss, I says, I was supposed to put all the stuff, all our records and everything else, and destroy all of those. So I asked him, I said, are things really that bad? He says, yes, they are. So when we got through, I went back, I cleaned up my gun and everything else because I was expecting the worst. But anyway, nothing happened that night. But that was the night that General Clark went to all the positions, and he told all those people, said they had to keep that beachhead at all costs. Well, the next morning, they started their offensive. first part of October, we finally got into Naples, Italy. And of course we were bombed there quite regularly too, while we were there. But I was in doing that forward bombing control all the time. I did it when I was in Sicily. I did it by myself. It was just a major and myself. He would get all the information, give it to me, and then I would put it all in code and send it out and wait for a confirmation. Well, when we were in Naples, we had this, of course we were doing these missions every day, and I had another fellow with me, a co-worker, that I asked for, because when we got ready to make an invasion of Italy, the major asked me if I would go on the invasion. I told him I wouldn't mind if I had somebody to help me. So he wanted to know. He says, "Oh, I'll get so and so." I said, "No, I don't want him." He says, "Well, who do you want?" So I picked out this buddy of mine. He was a Georgia cracker, and he came along with me, so we both worked that. I was watching over him because I more or less felt responsible for him, for getting him to go on the invasion with me. But anyway, we worked real well with doing the forward bombing control work. Each time we'd set up one of these missions. Well, the major had to go to Army intelligence and get the targets they wanted bombed. Then he'd come back with the information, how many planes we would need, what altitude they were going to fly, where they would meet their fighter escort, and how they were supposed to make their bombing runs, whether and after they made their bombing runs, because they always set them up so that they'd meet the least resistance from the anti-aircraft guns. And then when they got through bombing, we'd tell them either break left or break right or go straight ahead before they did, to keep from all these anti-aircraft guns. And that was what we did. And then when we sent this to our parent organization, well, the last word we would have on the message was confirmed. Well, this one night, we had the mission all set up, and the major, when we come back, he took off. He went into Naples, and there was no way in the world I could get a hold of him or anything else. Well, we sent the message to our headquarters, and it come back not confirmed. And here I am, and this one co-worker of mine, we were there, and so I says, we got to do something. So I went down to Army intelligence. I got a hold of the colonel, who gave us all the target information. Then we set up the whole mission, the colonel and myself. And then we come back to the tent, and I had Stevie and myself, and we put it all in code, sent it to our headquarters, and asked for a confirmation, and we got a confirmation. Of course, if I'd have messed up on that thing, well, we'd all been canned. But anyway, we set up that mission and everything worked. So the next morning when the major came in, he says, "Well, how did everything go last night?" I just handed him my paperwork, and he looked at that, and boy, all of a sudden he looked down. He couldn't believe what we had done, because we saved his butt from getting into a whole bunch of trouble. While we were in Italy in March of 1944, so this Mount Vesuvius erupted, and this is what it looked like. That all of that stuff blew up in the air, and that formed a cloud of over 20,000 feet high. And when it rained mud. But anyway, I was on duty this one night, and the commander of the 340 bomb group, which was one of the bomb groups under our wing, he called, and I was on duty, and he asked me to ask the general there what he was supposed to do. So I got word and went back there to ask him what they wanted him to do, and they told him, says, "Well, just call us back in the morning." Well, the next morning, there was about 2 feet of ash on the runway, and they couldn't get a plane off, and you can see here how all 40 of the planes that was on Pompei Aerodrome there in Italy, that was behind Mount Vesuvius, they were all damaged, and they couldn't get, and they, of course, they were all repaired, but it took them some time. But if they would have evacuated the night before, they could have saved all those airplanes. And nothing was ever done about that. I couldn't believe that. But anyway, like I said, and that lava where I was, about a half a mile down the road is where it went through. See, the lava flows in different directions. See, the one went down to Pompeii, the one went down by us there in Naples, and the lava from the volcano, when it flows, it doesn't flow like water. It overlaps. It keeps overlapping all the way down, and when it gets to a building, it just crumbles the whole. It just crumbles the whole thing. No matter what's in the way, it'll just eat it right up. When I was in Corsica, I talked my boss into flying a combat mission with him. We flew B-25s, and this was the bridge that we were going to bomb right here. This bridge right here. Okay, this is a picture of our actual bombing when it was bombed. That was the mission I was on. And the bridge was bombed out, and when we come back, when the pilot checked the aircraft, there was we were hit they had about 8 or 10 holes in the aircraft. Of course, it didn't hit any vital parts, so we made it back okay. But then I stayed in Corsica until January the 28th of 45. In Naples, Italy, I got on board this Coast Guard ship. It was a ship that, and on this ship we had a bunch of wounded people that were wounded over there in Italy. And we left there on the 28th, so got through the Straits of Gibraltar. As soon as we got through the Straits of Gibraltar, we run into a storm. And I mean, it was really a storm. It was one of those northeastern storms. They sent me home on leave. I was on leave for 30 days, and after 30 days, they sent me to a rehabilitation station in Santa Ana, California. In Santa Ana, it was a military base there, and you talk about food. Oh my goodness, I hadn't seen ice cream, coffee, or anything like that, because I was overseas almost 2.5 years, and like I say, I lived on the ground all the way from Africa all the way through Sicily. Then on the 7th of September 1945, I was discharged. I went on home, and that was my time during World War II.
Mr. Klum served in the military until 1962. He currently resides in Clermont, Florida. He is 93 years old. To learn more about the World War II Veterans History Project, please visit our website at www.veteranshistoryproject.com. We look forward to seeing you again for more exciting stories from the greatest generation.
Production support for the Veterans History Project is made possible by the Parity Financial Group, proudly saluting the extraordinary students who make up our future generation, and the military veterans from the greatest generation.